I've put out a poll on the SolidWorks LinkedIn group where I'm asking people to choose one of two names for a SolidWorks add-in that checks out a file and then gets a specific version and then checks that version back into the vault. So you're sort of doing a kind of a roll forward while maintaining the history of the file. So one of the options is called roll forward. The other one is frog leap. If you have a better name for an add-in, then feel free to drop that in the comment section of the poll. I'm going to put a link to that poll in the description of this video. If you don't really care about writing this add-in, then you can skip to the end of this video if you watch this on YouTube, or to the link of the video series on this LinkedIn post. The last video will have detail on how to get the CEX file that you can import into your vault and start playing around with your SOLIDWORKS files by promoting one of the old versions to be the latest one. So we're going to write this in C#. We're going to use the Blue Byte PDM SDK. I'm going to walk you through that process entirely here on my machine. And yeah, let's get started. I'm going to fire up Visual Studio. I've got Visual Studio 2019. If you've got 2022, that works as well. The reason why you should have either 2019 or 2022 is because we're going to be using the Blue Byte Systems PDM SDK template. These templates, you can get them from the Visual Studio Marketplace. I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. So I'm just going to continue with that code, right? Really, that's what we're going to do. And show you how to get the extension. So in Visual Studio, you can just go to extensions, manage extensions, and then make sure you've got the online tab open here, and then look for PDM SDK. And the first one is the one that you should be looking for, and this is going to install the Blue Byte SDK template files. And the template files are really boilerplate code that helps us, write add-ins more efficiently with the PDM SDK. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to go to File, and then I'm going to go to click on New Project, and I am going to find the PDM SDK template from my Create New Project window. Select that, go to Next, drop this in my Blue Byte Systems folder, and then I'm going to call this roll forward, and you can call this frog leap, frog leaper, or I told you so, or whatever convenient name that works for you and your team. So I'm going to click on Create, and because we're using the PDM SDK, I'm being prompted an additional window to specify more information about the add-in. So the name of the add-in is what is going to show up in the administration tool when we add the files of the add-in. So I'm going to call this, oops, I just went through the process, but we'll do that here in a minute by making those changes in the code. Maybe this is a good accident. So the details that we were supposed to enter should go in this section right here of the code. So if you don't have the Solution Explorer open, just press Ctrl Q. That'll take you all the way up here in your Visual Studio window, and in there type in Solution Explorer and just pick the first option that you see. So Solution Explorer, it's going to show this tab right here. Just double click on add-in.cs, which is a file created by the SDK template, and in here I'm just going to go into the name, and don't worry about the squiggly lines, we're going to fix that here in a minute. I'm going to call this roll forward, that's a missing R. And I'm going to type in here a description, checks out file, does a get on an old version, and checks it back into the vault. And this is going to have a company name as well, Blue Byte Systems here. The add-in version is going to be 1. That's what we are going to use. This is not a task add-in, so we can remove this. And we can set the minimum required version of PDM if you want to restrict older versions of PDM from this add-in. So what we could do is we can fix this by specifying the major and the minor So the major and the minor versions here are not really human readable in the sense that you don't really know what year is 10 and what 0 is. So we're going to fix that. We're going to fix this by going back and fixing the dependencies and fixing the squiggly line initially. So let me just go to the roll forward project in the Solution Explorer. You can right click on it, go to manage NuGet packages, and then we're going to upgrade the Bluebyte PDM SDK to use the latest version. So 71 versus 52, which is what the template comes with. So in the future, you can always start by upgrading your PDM SDK dependency. So yeah, you're running the latest version of the SDK. And if we go back here, well, first of all the squiggly lines are gone. And then we have the ability to use additional enums that used to be inaccessible in the old versions. So instead of specifying 10, we can say, hey, I want to use the year enum and say that the latest or the minimum version, let's do 2018. And then I can specify that I want a service pack, for example, 0. So, and I can just drop this extra text here and do control dot and add a using statement so that it makes my text more readable. So the required version, the minimum required version is PDM 2018 service pack 0. This is more human readable. I can read this and say, okay, this is the minimum version of PDM that my add-in can run on. These two here, you don't have to worry about these. Com visible at the GUID. These are internal workings of the add-in, and these are automatically generated by the PDM SDK. This is why we use the SDK templates, because they do this kind of cool stuff so you don't have to generate these. So we have the identifying elements of the add-in, the name, the description, the company name, so on and so forth. The last thing we need to do is to create the command or the menu command. In here, I already have some boilerplate code that we could reuse. We want to have a right-click menu in our add-in that does the get or the roll forward command. We'll start by calling this roll forward. Give this a more unique number. Make the change here. And we can call the text to roll forward. So the text that's going to show in the right mouse button when you click on a file is going to be roll forward. I can specify a few additional things in my menu attribute here. One of those attributes is the flag, and this flag lets you decide which items in the File Explorer are going to have this menu. So you can restrict that to files so that you don't see this menu item in folders. And you can also restrict it to the nature of the selection. So you can force it so that you are only working with a single selection versus multiple selections. So this enum, you can find more information about this enum if you go to EDM menu flag. Oops, EDM menu flag. And we're getting the wrong type of flag here. And I think you should just add SOLIDWORKS PDM to it. There you go. So these are the menu flags that you need to use one of or a combination of, and you can just add the values here to get the perfect combination that works for you. I think ours is 43 for single selection on just regular files. So that is going to be the flag. I probably need to make sure that I have the flag as the third option here. So I'll just do right after the caption here with the third parameter, which is 43. All right. And I think we should be good to start adding some code into our implementation here. So using the PDM SDK, the only method that you really need to make changes to is the onCommand method. And you can see that there's a throw non-implemented exception here that is sort of put in by the PDM SDK template. This is going to draw your attention to the area of the code where you need to put in your logic. So the best thing to do is to start by adding a try-catch block. And this block of instruction here is going to execute, but also it's going to catch any exceptions that occurs in the process of running the on command. And in here, we can display an error message to the user saying, hey, something went wrong, take action, or just gives the user the ability to see the error message for the application crashing and sort of like not giving them an error report. So let's start by defining a variable. We'll call it error message, and we're going to use that exception and maybe the stack trace with it as well. So we'll concatenate these two and call this stack trace, and we can type in here an error occurred, and then more details will follow. And we can use the vault property that's in the base class here and send a message to the user. The parent window handle, we can get that from the PO command. And the message, we already have that written here. And we can leave this to be just an OK button. OK only. And the caption, we could reuse the identity property that's part of the base class to show a title in the message box that shows the name of the addon, which is roll forward, as well as the version, right? So whenever we get an exception, it gets handled, and then the user gets a message box with a title of addon name, and then dash, and then space, and then V, and then the version of the addon. We can also add additional text here. So call this fatal error, because this is going to sort of not crash the application, but terminate the execution. Fantastic. Now, this addon is going to handle right-click menus. So we need to be able to filter out the command that corresponds to that particular type. So what we need to do is to get the command type. So let's define a variable called command type. We get that from the PO command, rather not get type, but I think it's called MECMD type. And then we can do a switch statement on the command type. And then you get all the different types of commands that are addon can handle. The only ones that our addon is going to be listening to are the menu ones, because we have a menu up here. So we can drop use all the other ones because we don't need those anyway. We just leave the default one at the bottom here, and we've got a menu command. Now, we need to make sure that the item we are going to handle is a file. We don't need to worry about that because we already have a flag in the menu attribute here that takes care of creating the right-click menu only for files. So it's going to be a file. We don't need to worry about it being a folder. What we need to do is to, one, create a user interface where we can put all the different versions of the file. And then from that user interface, get the user selection. So the user could select, let's say, version number 3. And then from there, we can do a checkout of the file, get version 3, and then check it back into the vault. Or check the file back into the vault. So let's do that. We will start with creating the user interface. So let's do that. Let's create a folder. We call it views. And in this folder, we're going to create a form, Windows form. Call it, not feeling quite creative today, so I'm gonna call it forms.cs. Oops, let's go in here. It's not quite happy with my code here. We'll come back to this here in a second. Let's go back to the UI. I think we need to build for this designer to render the content. So let's just right click here, click on build, and it says build failed. So let me take a look at my code. It's not too happy with the name that I've chosen for my form because it's using the base class. So rookie mistake, we'll call this main form. call this main form. We'll make the change here to main form. And now if I right click on roll forward and build, I still get the same issue because I need to go and rename the designer file, which I did just now. So if I build again, see that my build succeeded. If I double click on my main form, ta-da, I get my main form. So I can click in the middle of my form here and then right click and go to properties. You'll see the property tab open here. Obviously, if you don't see the property tab, always go Control Q, go to the search text box at the top here, and then type in whatever tab or window you're looking for, whether that would be Solution Explorer, the Output tab, or the Output window, or the properties. You can find things using the search bar at the top, which is very, very convenient. I'm going to find the form style, the border style. I'm going to change this to be, let's make it a fixed tool window. This means that the user cannot change the size of it, and nor should they, right? And then let's change the text of the form to, call this roll forward. I'm always missing the R in roll forward. And then I'm going to look for toolbox at the top. So I can see my toolbox of controls. I'm going to need, well, we could have 3 controls. First control will be the combo box, right? This is going to hold the possible versions that we can roll forward. And then we technically could, be content with only one control, so the user can make that selection and then close the window, which is kind of counterintuitive to the world. It's not user friendly. So unfortunately, we'll have to include a button. So we'll include the OK button at the very least, right? Right click on the button, go to properties. I'm going to change the text here so that it says OK. And then I have to go up here and change the the button name to OK button. I'm going to make the same name change to the combo box. We're going to call it combo box. Oh, sorry, version combo box. And then maybe just realign these controls so they look nicer. Perfect. So I can go into the form by right-clicking on it and click on View Code. Close the Properties window as well as the toolbox. I don't need that. And I'm going to define a property here. Leave it as int. I'm going to call this selected. Selected version. This is the version that the user selects. By default, we'll keep this as equal to -1. So -1 means that no selection has been made. Okay. Now going back to our designer, I'm going to add a event handler when the user clicks on the OK button, and we're going to add an event handler as well for when we close the form. Let me think about there for a second if we need that. So I think we'll not include that. We'll just add the logic for the OK button, and then if it comes up later in the testing that we need to add an event handler for when the form closes to handle some sort of use case, then we'll add it when we get to that point. But for now, we'll just add the logic here to the OK button. Perfect. So the OK button is going to do the following, which will be selected version equals to this dot combo version combo box selected item, and selected item is an object, so we need to convert this to an integer, and we'll just do dot hide. So this is going to set the selected version to whatever the user has selected, the selected version property, and then hide the form. Perfect. So we need to add some data to the combo box. So we'll call these versions. And after the components are initialized, then we can go type in this version combo box item source, and that will be equal to versions. See if that works. Item, or rather source, or data source rather, that should set the content of, set this array to be the data source for the combo box. One more thing here before we go further, I need to go to the combo box and then change the way it renders, because we want to limit the way the user interacts with the combo box by disabling any edits so they don't have the ability to enter text here. So they're forced to choose from the drop-down, and we can do that by changing the drop-down style, right? So I want this to be a drop-down list, so they're not able to make any edits to the values here. They just click the drop-down and they choose whatever value they can from there. Okay. I would say that this logic is not 100% proof. There might be one or two edge cases here where we might end up with an incorrect selection, but we'll worry about that when we get to the testing. That's what we have testing. So if I go back to my add-in here, right, I can start by getting the, so let's just type out some comments. First of all, get the affected document versions, show UI, show UI, and at the same time, and get user input, check out document, do a get, and then check document back into the vault, and that kind of seals the process. Okay, so let's start by getting the affected document. Where do we get the affected document? So when I talk about affected documents, I'm talking about the files that the user right clicks on and then clicks on the menu command, roll forward. We get that information from the PPO data. So PPO data, I'm gonna get the first datum, PPO data to list, and then dot first. By default, this is not going to be permissible until I add the link using statement, which is this using statement right here. And now I can actually get the PDM file. So we'll do file equals to this vault get object, and that object is going to be a file, and the datum dot ml object ID1 is the ID of the file that the user right clicked on in File Explorer and clicked roll forward on. So this is going to get us the IEDM file 5 object. If this process is not clear, please drop me a message in the comments section and let me know if I should expand on this in future videos, just to make sure that you guys understand what the command types are and what the EDM command data is and how these things interact with one another, so that you're able to get and work with the affected files. So now that we have the affected file, all we need to do is get the user or get the file versions, right? So let's start with that. In order for us to get the file version, we need to get into the history of the file, and for that we're going to have to create something called the history utility. So we'll call this history utility. This will be equal to this vault dot create utility. However, create utility exists in, I think, IEDM vault maybe 15 or 10. Definitely not in 5 because we can't see that method. So let's just Google this quickly. So create utility, IDM Vault 7. I was mistaken. So we need to convert this to Vault 7. So var Vault 7 equals to as this vault as IDM Vault 7. And I'll just use the Vault 7 variable here and create the utility that I'm looking for, which is history. Type in as IDM history. Okay, so the history utility is going to allow us to get the history of the file. And really, I just want to know what is the latest version of the file, and from it we can create our user selection. So I'm going to do add file. I already have a file ID here. Probably need to add the folder as well, if I need to add the folder or not. Really good way to work with these utilities is to look at the PDM help example. So let's just take a look at that here quickly. So I'll copy IEDM file history. Actually, I don't need to copy. I can just reuse this. So EDM utility. Let's see if there's a history example here, or I can just search for it. So IEDM history allows you access to the history listing of files or folders. And is there an example here? Get histories of files in C#. So just scrolling down here to see what the example is. So file or history utility is being created here. I think they're using the history update, which is not exactly what we're looking for. I can always perhaps go back here and search on cat overflow, see if there's an example. I think I left an example here. Yeah, I think we could perhaps use this. So IDM history, I only need to add the file. I don't need to add the folder. And then I could just copy this and use the method get history. So let's just go back here. We don't need to add the folder. We'll just use the get history, right? And in here, reference, we're looking for a local variable of type EDM history item, which is an array. So I'm gonna type that out. And then in here, the history item type, let's just go back here and copy this because it's easier. Dot and roll back. What type create? Let's go and see M file type of history that we want. So it's not delete, it's not file branch. We don't care about that. Parallel state, rename, nope. Revision, rollback, share, state, undelete, undo. File version, let's do that. That's what we need. And then going back to the first parameter, I'm going to press Control dot here and generate a local variable. Copy paste this right above my line. So this is going to return all the file version history. And I could perhaps do, let's see, var latest version here equal to history, or PPO ret history select, and we're gonna get the max of the version. Fantastic. So this is our version max. So we'll do var versions list equal new list of int. So this is going to be our list. So we got the latest version, and we are trying to put together a list of integers that contains all the possible versions that you could roll back or roll forward from, right? So we'll create a list here, and then we'll do not for each, but for I equal 1 to latest version -1. Well, to latest version, right? We'll just, oops. So when I do my select statement, I'm actually selecting in I apologize. I should do max. So this is going to select the item with the max version. Perfect. And in here, so version list, add I. So this will have all of our versions. So now I can actually remove this and put it right here and get the UI ready. So var f type in form equal views.form or main form. And in here, we'll just paste in the version list dot to array. All right, 30 minutes in, we are getting halfway through this add-in. Now we have the UI. We need to show the UI to the user. So form show dialog and new window owner. So win32 window and then PO command dot parent handle. So the show dialog method is going to show the UI and stop the execution or halt the execution pending user interaction, pending the user actually making the selection and closing the window, right? And the first parameter here for the show dialog method is an I. It's asking for the parent window. And the parent window is File Explorer. We can use an existing class. It's called the Win32 window. That's actually implemented in the Blue Byte, not SDK, but extensions or services rather. So I'm going to go right click on the Solution Explorer. This is absolutely not required, but we add this so that the window actually prints on top of File Explorer. Sometimes it might print or it might show under File Explorer or minimized, and that could be frustrating for the user because they don't know where the UI is. So this makes sure that the form prints at the right region in your window. So I'm going to right click on my roll forward project, manage the NuGet packages, and I'm going to type in here in the browse window or the browse tab. I'm looking for PDM professional.services, which is a public library that you could use. So that gets installed. If I control dot here, I'm able to use that. If you don't want to install this library and use this namespace, then it's easier if you create a class and call it Win32 and implement the iWin32 interface from system.forms. Cool. Now that the selected version is going to be whatever the user selects the form. So selects in the form. So selected version is going to be form.selected version. So before we do a get, if selected version equals -1, it means that the user has not made any selection. So we'll just return, right? But if the user makes a selection, then we have a version to work with. So let's start by I need to check out the file. So before we check out the file, we can just check out the file. So we'll do file.lock file, which checks out the file. I need the parent folder of the file, which I can get from the datum. So we'll copy the same line and paste it and do folder get. This vault get object. I want the folder, I don't want the file. And the ID is also provided to us by the datum. But for the menu command type, the ID of the folder is provided in the field ML object ID 3. And we need to change this to IEDM folder 5 or 10. Works either way. So scrolling all the way down here, I can confidently put in the first parameter as the folder ID. And I can specify the parent window handle from the PO command. And I can leave the log to be as is. Right now, I think there's extra checks that we can make here. I need to make sure that the file is actually checked in. It's not checked out by me on another computer. I'm going to leave those things for you guys to put together. This is more about proof of concept that could use some polishing in the future to become more rigorous and stable. But you get the idea. So once the file is locked, I can go in and do file dot get file copy. So now I can get the version of the file that I want to work with. So PO command for the handle, and the version that I want to work with is the selected version. That's it. Now all I need to do is to lock the file back into the vault. So that would be unlock file. And when I unlock the file, I need to provide the window handle, and I need to provide a comment. So we'll call this rolled forward version. Call this selected versions, right? Okay, and that is pretty much it. So I can just go in here and do this dot vault message box, right? I can just copy that from the error handling section here, paste that there, and then instead of saying have an error message, we're just going to have a simple message. So var message equals to, we'll just copy this. Oops, I'll just remove those double quotes. We don't need those. And maybe move this all the way up here, and then copy my message, paste it here, and show a message to the user saying that we have rolled forward version whatever, right? And this is not an error. Call this operation complete. So it will say in the title, the add-in space the version, and then operation complete. I'm missing an A. I'm making a lot of typos today. So operation complete. Okay, so this is ready to be tested. Let's test it out. There are a couple ways to test this. We can use our internal integration testing framework. Maybe we can do it another time. We'll show you guys how you can manually test this. I'm feeling very confident, so hopefully this will work from the get-go. I have my administration tool right here. So I just built the add-in. I'm going to go to my vault and open it up. Oops. My super secret password. And I am going to add the add-in. So if you are unable to see this, it's because there's some sensitive information here that I've purposely hidden. So when you open up your administration tool, log into your vault, find the add-ins, right click on it, go click on new add-in. So let's find the debug folder. So find your project in the Solution Explorer, right click on it, and then go open folder in File Explorer, and then find the bin folder and then the debug folder, and then cut that path. Go back to your select files for the add-in browse window, and then just select the files that you see there and click open. I have an error here, and the error is because I have removed the task. So I have to put that back there. So is it a task? No, it's not a task. I'm gonna build again, go back, cancel, and then gonna re-add the add-in one more time. Select all, click on open, and that does add the add-in. You can see the information that was specified using the attributes in the header of the add-in.cs file. The name, the company, everything comes up here. So, and then you can see the minimum version, or the minimum required version. So I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to confirm OK one more time, and then we'll just circle back to open up a example folder here. Open up just a folder in File Explorer. Just wait here for my add-in to load. It's loaded. Let me just find just a silly file. Take the axle. If I right click on it, right click on the axle here, you should see a menu item called Roll Forward. PDM is awfully slow. because one, I've got my PDM on the cloud, but also I've got a bunch of other stuff that's loaded as add-in, so that can be time consuming sometimes. All right, so if I right click, oops, close out of there, right click on the file. Let's see if there's a roll forward, and I can see a roll forward. I've got 8 versions of this thing, so I'm just gonna click on roll forward. All right, so I've got my window that popped up. I've got my 8 versions. Obviously, I cannot roll forward version 8, which makes sense. So I'm gonna take version 4. I'm gonna click on OK, and it's gonna do a bunch of stuff, right? It's going to check this file out, do a get, and then check it back into the vault, and then we should see a okay, operation complete message box here at the end. And that was very quick. So we rolled forward version 4. I'm just going to click on OK. And now if I right click on the file and go to history, we should see something different here. Here you go. Version 9, we rolled forward version 4 while, preserving the history of the file. So that's pretty much it. This is the roll forward add-in, written and tested. Obviously, there's always some use cases here that need to be handled, but if you want to get access, get the CEX file, then I'll have details on how to do that in the description of this video. If you've made it thus far, I just want to thank you so much for spending an hour with me coding this PDM add-in. Just make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching this on YouTube, or follow me on LinkedIn. Make sure also to subscribe to our newsletter at www.bluebyte.biz/newsletter. I will see you in the next one, and thank you for watching.